everybody, this is George from DinosaurGeorge.com answering the questions I get from around the world, and let's dive right into it. This is from Blake from Huntsville, Arkansas. He says, how much jaw strength did Spinosaurus have, and what was the Spinosaurus's main defense? Well, Blake, the jaw strength of Spinosaurus, I don't know if I've ever seen an actual study, so my opinion is based simply on my knowledge of the design of the skull. When you look at an animal like Spinosaurus, they have incredibly long snout. If you see an animal with a long snout, in most cases, the end of the snout doesn't really generate a lot of bite force because the musculature is all way back here by the ear, by the back of the jaw. But there are no muscles at the front of that snout that allow it to close with incredible force. So I don't think Spinosaurus would have the bite force that we would expect looking at his size. You look at his size, you think, oh my gosh, that thing could bite through metal. Well, it probably couldn't. Now, crocodiles and alligators have elongated snouts, and they have some incredible bite force. But keep in mind that the size of their snout, even though it's relatively long, is not nearly as elongated as a Spinosaurus. In fact, if you want to look at an animal that probably has a similar bite force to body size, look at a gharial from India. They have elongated snouts. They can pop their mouth pretty fast, but they don't have an incredible bite force. But Spinosaurus doesn't need it. All the evidence that I've ever seen and heard of suggests or points towards the fact that Spinosaurus is a fish eater. And when you're eating fish, you don't have to penetrate really big, thick, heavy bones, and you're not having to do that. You're having to simply grab him and hang on to him, not crush him or break him in half. So I believe that the bite force wasn't an issue for Spinosaurus because it didn't need a big, powerful bite force. It just needed a jaw strength strong enough to pierce the body of a fish. And some fish are armored like gars, but still, when you look at those spike-like teeth from Spinosaurus, all he has to do is get him into the prey to hang on, not to actually break the body in half or penetrate it, just enough to hang on. Now, as for his defense, those jaws were powerful, certainly, and his teeth were pretty nasty, but his arms probably would have been even more effective as a weapon because of the size of the claws. He had some pretty nasty claws, pretty massive. So I suspect that if he was in need of defending himself or attacking a rival, he would have relied on his claws and his teeth. They would have relied on everything. Heck, they may have even used their tail as a weapon to knock the other guy off his feet. So I suspect that they were more than capable of taking care of themselves between their tail, their feet, their hands, and their teeth. Not many things would want to take on an animal like that. All right, let's go to Reed from Thief River Falls, Minnesota. What a cool name for a town. Isn't that cool, Thief River Falls? I like that, Reed. Who would win in a fight between Tarbosaurus or Albertosaurus? Thanks for answering my question. Reed, it's my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to write to me. Okay, when people ask me these questions of who would win in a fight between this animal and that animal, you guys have to keep in mind that this is simply based on my opinion, my knowledge of modern animals, and my knowledge of prehistoric animals. But there's no way to know for certain in these situations. A lot of these questions are animals that didn't live together. Some didn't even live at the same time period. Some didn't live in the same country. But I enjoy answering these, and I know you guys like asking them because I always get these questions. So since you enjoy asking the question, then I feel that it's my responsibility to answer the question for you. So here's my answer. Tarbosaurus, in my opinion, is a much more advanced dinosaur over Albertosaurus because he's a later model. It's sort of like cars. Ferraris today are much cooler and faster and have better design than a Ford Model T. Reason why? The Model T was a long time ago. The Ferraris are modern, and so we have more technology. Well, the same goes with dinosaurs. The farther back you go in dinosaurs, the less advanced they were. They are continually improving the model, basically. And when you get to the end, you have the highest life forms in most cases. So, first of all, Tarbosaurus has an advantage because he's certainly more advanced than Albertosaurus. Second of all, he's considerably larger. Tarbosaurus lived in Asia, Albertosaurus lived in North America. They probably never would have seen each other, but let's say they did. Albertosaurus has speed on his side, and that's about it, because if Tarbosaurus ever gets his teeth in him, Albertosaurus is dead. So in my opinion, Albertosaurus would have been the winner had they ever had a fight. All right, now Ludwig is this Reykjavik, Iceland? Reykjavik? R-E-Y-K-J-A-V-I-K. Reykjavik? I think that's correct, Ludwig. I hope I'm saying that correctly, my friend. Anyway, it's in Iceland, which is cool. Hey, George, how you doing? And I'm hoping you're doing great. I am, Ludwig. I am doing great. And I hope you and your family and all of your friends are doing great as well. And I hope you guys are staying warm in Iceland. And I just dropped my remote, so I'm going to have to bend over and pick it over in a minute. But what do you do? Okay. My question is about Phil Curry's theory about large predators pack hunting and that their social behavior, like Maposaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Allosaurus, and other big creatures. I'm glad if you get this. I do get this, and I understand what you're talking about, Ludwig. And I agree with Dr. Curry. There have been discoveries made of multiple tyrannosaurs or theropods found together in the same area. Now, in the case of Allosaurus, those discoveries appear that they're not families necessarily, but that they're being attracted to an area because of the availability of prey. So that may not support the concept that they are living together in family groups. That may mean that they're just all showing up at the same place. But with some of the other theropods, I know Albertosaurus, they're finding what appears to be family members together because they're of different ages, but they've all died at the exact same time in the same place, and that suggests family. I think it makes sense that these animals would be social in that hunting by yourself makes it very difficult to catch prey because you only have one method, and that is surprise. But when you're hunting in a pair, for instance, you can set up an ambush. You can do things that you couldn't do otherwise. When you hunt in a family unit, you can pretty much take on anything regardless of size. So I think it makes all the sense in the world that these animals would have lived in family units because it would have made a better chance for them, or would have meant a better chance for them to be able to be successful. So I think they did. Let me tell you something about Dr. Curry. I want to tell you something so amazing. Back in August of 2013, this year, I had the greatest opportunity. I spent a day with Dr. Curry and his wife, Eva, who is a brilliant paleontologist as well. I got to spend the day with them. They took me through their laboratory. We looked at some of the specimens. I got to touch and feel some pieces that almost made me want to cry. I was so overwhelmed by it. And then I got to have dinner with these guys. They are two of the nicest people you will ever meet in paleontology. I've been very fortunate because I've met my heroes. I met Professor Larry Whitmer. I've met Dr. Phil Curry. I met Robert Bacher. I met Larry Martin. Man, you name it. I met Dr. Tom Holtz. All of these guys are the epitome of excellence, in my opinion, and I had the chance to meet him. So I just wanted to share with you about Phil Curry. He's one of the nicest people on the planet, and I hope everybody gets a chance to meet him, and especially meet his wife, Eva, who is just as brilliant and just as nice. The better looking of the two, I might add. Okay, Hudson in Longview, Texas. Just drove through Longview, Texas last week, Hudson. Who would win in a fight between Allosaurus and Spinosaurus? Well, Allosaurus is my favorite dinosaur. I always have a biased opinion of him, but in this particular case, I can't, as much as I wish I could, I cannot, in all honesty, say that I think an Allosaurus would have the ability to beat something as big as a Spinosaurus. Again, keep in mind, 2 different time periods, 2 different countries, but that doesn't matter. It still would be an interesting fight. Spinosaurus simply has such a size advantage that Allosaurus probably could never get in close enough to really do much damage. Spinosaurus would tower over the top of him. His arm length would be able to exceed that of Allosaurus's. His nose would have given him an advantage. Spinosaurus's snout, because he could have grabbed him before Allosaurus gets close enough to do much worse. So as much as I hate to admit this, I gotta say, Hudson, Spinosaurus, pretty big dude. All right, finally, there's Sean from Charlottetown, Canada. PEI. Now, what is PEI? Is that the name of the state? What would it be? What would that be? I don't know, Sean. I know you're from Canada. I hope you clarify it to me one day. Do you believe that Pachycephalosaurus were flank butters, head butters, or otherwise? Ah, this I like. This is cool. Pachycephalosaurus, we all know who he is. He's the dinosaur with the big dome on his head. Would he try to butt heads with the rival or hit the flanks? I think all of the above. I think when you're an animal that fights and you've got, you were born with a football helmet for a head, then you're going to use it any way you can. Now, there's a lot of question about, look, If they ran at each other and headbutted, how could they possibly hit without sliding off? Well, you look at those rounded domes, I don't believe those dinosaurs are running at each other and butting heads. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're probably lowering their heads in a kind of a shoving match back and forth. Because if you took a bowling ball, and I took a bowling ball, and we ran at each other as fast as we could to try to hit, we're going to glance off because the bowling ball is round. You're just not going to hit and bounce off. You're going to slide off. Well, the problem with Pachycephalosaurus is they have this ring of horns around their head. Matter of fact, my head kind of looks like a Pachycephalosaurus head if you look at it. Great. They call me Dinosaur George apparently because I have a head like a Pachycephalosaurus. Great. There goes the jokes. Anyway, yeah, that was hilarious. I get it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. All right, so if they have horns lining around the outer side of their head, and if you lower your head and you run and you glance off, this guy's horns are going to go into your eyes, your horns are going to go into his eyes. It doesn't do you any good. It makes no sense to put your eyes out in a fight. So I believe if they were headbutting, they're simply walking up to each other, putting their head down and shoving so that they have a little bit of control. But if they're in the fight with another rival, or if they're defending themselves, they could then use that head to hit anywhere. And hitting somebody in the back of the leg could knock them off their feet easily. Hit them in the ribs, you break their ribs. So I think that in a fight, they use that head to hit anywhere they could to cause damage. But between rivals, probably especially the males, I would suspect, they're probably just lowering their head and pushing and shoving versus getting a running start and smashing into somebody. You know, there's one other option that's interesting, and that is these animals, like giraffes, may have stood next to each other side by side and swung those domes into the flank of their rival so that they're missing the rib cage. They're hitting probably between the rib cage and the hip, which would mean that it would be painful, but it may not be as dangerous. So there's a possibility that these animals are using those heads to cause injury, but not something devastating or catastrophic, because you don't necessarily want to kill the guy you're wrestling with. Then again, maybe you do. I don't know. It's a good, whatever it is, it would be interesting to see how they use those amazing domes. Okay, that's it for now. If you have a question, go to my website, dinosaurgeorge.com, click on the Ask Dinosaur George page, fill out the form, submit it. I'll do everything I can to get to as many of these as I can. So for those of you that have written time and time again, please accept my apologies. I will try my best to get these knocked out. For you young people out there, you know the rules. For everybody else, you know the rules. I'll talk to you guys soon.